North Ridgeville City Council Committee of the Whole meeting is now in session. Today is Monday, April 21st, 2025. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Clerk, please call the roll.
Swank.
Here.
Schaefer.
Here.
Abens.
Here.
Winkle.
Here.
Awig.
Here.
DeVries.
Here.
Jacobs.
Here.
Mr. Mayor.
Here.
And let the record show that also joining us is Kim Lieber, Planning and Development Director. At our last meeting, I referred two pieces of legislation to committee for further discussion. They are ordinances 2025-50 and 2025-65. So keeping things in order as listed on the agenda, we'll take a look at ordinance 2025-50 first. Clerk, if you could please read the ordinance.
An ordinance replacing Chapter 1030 Street Trees with new Chapter 1030 Trees and replacing Chapter 1032 Master Tree Plan of the North Ridgeville Streets, Utilities, and Public Service Code.
Okay, this ordinance was introduced by Mayor Corcoran, so I will begin by allowing him an opportunity to provide additional details and information.
You know, we talked a little bit about this ordinance, and I'm going to let Kim talk about it.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. President. As the council's aware, last year, I think it was last year, time flies, new city arborist was appointed, Ryan Thomas, in the Public Works Department. And so in his new role, one of the first things he did was to meet with me and also our engineering staff to talk about some of his objectives for the position and how ordinance updates could be made that would help support his mission to encourage proper tree care and enforcement through the city. So in the fall, we undertook a process to review our existing ordinances, and also, you know, we had an eye on working towards Tree City USA status. And we also had an eye towards updating our city master tree plan, just knowing how things have changed over time. Species that were once desirable are now invasive. You know, that there's kind of a constant change in this field that maybe our ordinances we're not recognizing. So we've been at work looking specifically at Chapter 1030 street trees since about October. So this ordinance, much of it dates back to the 1960s, and so it really was in dire need of a refresh. Some of our main objectives first were to clarify the authority of the city arborist over trees in the right-of-way and also public places. So the ordinance kind of acknowledged the arborist, but really wasn't very explicit as to what that position's powers and duties and responsibilities were. So we've fleshed that out quite a bit. We're also suggesting that we repeal Chapter 1032, which is Master Tree Plan, and we would like that to be adopted as a separate document that would be adopted by Planning Commission and then maintained by the city arborist. Again, for the reasons that, you know, things in our city evolve and change, and to have, you know, like legislative types of trees that are required or prohibited doesn't really acknowledge that these things are fluid and that the state of Ohio might weigh in on tree species or provide best practice documents that then might make our code out of step. We also want to provide some more specific authority for the city arborist and enforcement of private trees. That would be including describing the process for issuing notices of violation, abatement, and also the lien process if the city were required to take action, and provide an appeal process. So all of that was a very similar process to how we currently handle property maintenance through the building division. We wanted to establish a similar process because that was very vague in our current ordinance. We wanted to add a section on boundary line trees, which the code doesn't currently address. Again, allowing the city arborist to maintain a list of prohibited trees not subject to legislative approval. We want to require contractors who work in the city doing tree work to be registered. And then we updated some of that outdated language around penalties. So those were the key changes made. A companion piece to this 1030 will be a submission to Planning Commission of a draft master tree plan that the commission will review and recommend, and then council would take action on that Planning Commission recommendation, and that will become the administrative document that our arborist uses that would, it includes all sorts of things like best practices, planting diagrams, and other educational tools that we can use as kind of a outreach document for the public to help everyone understand what our tree objectives are in North Ridgeville.
Okay, thank you very much. So it's a pretty comprehensive approach to what we had before and what we'd like to move to.
Yes.
I did spend some time with Ryan Thomas, the arborist, on Tuesday, I think it was, of last week, and I appreciate him taking the time to tour me around the city and show me examples of healthy trees and not so healthy trees, and some examples of improper maintenance or no maintenance at all in some cases, and kind of the problems that creates. It was really eye-opening, so I do appreciate him taking that time. I support the overall goal, which I think essentially is to educate the public, and when there are street trees, or trees in the public right of way that need to be trimmed or removed because they're dying or diseased, ultimately we want them to contact the city, contact Ryan, and just, I guess, seek guidance more or less from the city to ensure that the trees are being maintained properly and or proper types of trees are being planted and so on and so forth. I will at this point ask the remaining council members if there are any questions or comments.
Through the chair.
Yes, Mrs. Swink?
I have two questions. The first one, there's prohibited trees. What if they already exist on someone's property? I know it's like I think the weeping willow. I believe we have a few of those that they've been on someone's property for the past 30, 40 years. What are the actions taken on those types of situations?
I believe that the prohibited trees can generally stay. We can't issue approval to plant new of that variety. But I think there's also an effort to educate the community about why certain tree species are prohibited and the damage that they might cause, or some of the peril to stormwater management or our streets. I think if one of those trees became diseased or became a threat, that we could require its removal, but if there's a healthy prohibited tree, the city's not initiating action on those.
Okay, and then my second question is on page 7 in number C. It talks about the order required herein shall set forth the time limit for compliance. What's that time limit? 30 days, 60 days, 120 days?
We specifically don't indicate the exact number of days because there might be extreme risk to public health or safety, or there might just be a slow decline in health of a tree. So that allows the arborist to identify, relate the amount of time to remove or to address the issue to the severity or the level of danger. So maybe Mr. Thomas, who's joined us.
This is Ryan Thomas, our arborist.
Hello.
Hello.
Yes, so as Kim said,
Hey, Ryan, would you mind turning your microphone on there just so we can get it?
sorry, got it.
Go ahead.
As Kim said, the severity of the risk that the tree presents will dictate the amount of time given to abate the hazard. For instance, the tree that fell on Jay Cox
On that car?
last summer on the car. I was told that was noticed to be a hazard, but wasn't taken care of. 2 weeks, it took 2 weeks for it to fall. Something like that could be abated sooner than your run-of-the-mill smaller branch over top of a sidewalk or a roadway. That can be given. I have been giving 30 days for that before. And if people seem to be working with me, actively seeking a contractor, then I've been working with them to give them extensions.
Thank you.
Are there any additional questions or comments from council at this time?
Through the chair,
Yes, Mr. Abens?
I'm sorry, when I first read it, I saw it, and now I can't find it. Pertaining to trimming and pruning trees, you're looking for a permit plus $80? Is that accurate?
So that is accurate. The permit is part of this, and the dollar amount, the $80, is actually in a different ordinance, which is actually on our agenda tonight under third readings. 2025-55 is where the $80 permit fee appears.
Yeah, and quite frankly, I take care of my trees, including the one on the tree lawn. And I typically prune and trim twice a year. And I don't see me pulling permits and paying $80 to take off a couple of smaller branches. And I don't see a lot of citizens doing that either. And we're not talking about the giant trees, we're talking about within the developments, the smaller trees, and something I'm perfectly capable of doing. I have a problem with that. And, or like in our HOA, we had some trees there and some lower branches were taken off. And if you look, it was a good job. What I might suggest instead of something like that is actually putting together a video and put it on our website showing folks how to trim trees, where to trim them, when to trim them, that type of thing. I appreciate it when it's the large trees, especially along the main roads and that. And I'm just wondering, does this ordinance apply to the utility companies? Do they come to us looking for permits?
So actually, as far as the utility companies go, I, as the city arborist, will have the ability to be in contact with Ohio Edison's forester and make sure that they are trimming up to standards.
Because most times I've seen utility companies butcher trees.
Yes.
And
They
all
are
they care
required-
about is the safety of their wires, nothing else.
Right, well, they are required to get their clearance on main power lines, 12.5 kilovolts on, 12.5 kilovolts and three-phase wires. Usually the wires around main roads, they're required to get 15 foot of clearance. However, they are, in their standards booklets, they are required to make proper cuts. And if I see them not making proper cuts, I can force them to go back and make proper cuts to the health of the tree.
And how do you know that they're in the city doing this? Because they could be at the far reaches, and you could be at the other end of the city and not necessarily know they're doing it. Do they know that they are supposed to be pulling permits and notifying you?
They will.
Mr. President, can
Yes.
I comment on?
Sure.
To the councilman's question? You know, I certainly think if council wants to amend some language or amend a fee, you know, we'd be open to that. But it's important that the city be able to regulate any installation, or whether it's utility or tree or sign that occurs in our right-of-way. So, you know, trees play a valuable part of our streetscape. You know, they provide a lot of benefit, beauty and shade. You know, there's a lot of natural benefit, but there's also a lot of potential hazards if the wrong type are planted or if they're planted incorrectly. The interaction with power lines that was brought up, potential heaving of sidewalks that then cost property owners, you know, a lot of headaches to try and address those. So, you know, the city really wants to be more on top of those types of trees that are planted and also to ensure where they're planted is appropriate, doesn't create visibility blocks, isn't in a location that has underground utilities that could be, where there could be interference. So this is the reason for desiring the permit process, is to have better control and understanding over those trees that are being planted to ensure that they're a type that we want to have planted. And in some neighborhoods, it's also to ensure that that same pattern of planting or types or varietals of trees are, you know, maintained. And also that there's not a monoculture developing, which I've learned from our arborist, is also has its negative consequences when there's not planting diversity. So For those reasons, I think it's appropriate to direct those wishing to plant or remove trees in the right-of-way to the city so that these things are done safely and selections are made properly and the planting is reviewed for long-term health of our streetscapes.
And I agree with that. I mean, that obviously is the means to get them in front of the city is requiring a permit. But along the same lines as what Mr. Abens stated, I thought maybe a good way to handle that would be to amend 2025-55, which Mr. Abens, as I said, will appear under third readings tonight, leaving the permit on there, but changing it from an $80 fee to a $0 fee. You know, still requiring them to contact the city and, you know, seek advice from our arborist, but it would not, you know, cost $80 each and every time, just as an option.
Yeah, as I said, in order to do, within your own property, in order to do a proper job of maintaining your trees, you really should be doing it twice a year. And and that's what I do. And my trees are healthy, including the one on the tree lawn. But now, are you interested in knowing what's being planted within private property that does not affect the public right-of-ways? With the exception of forbidden trees.
Right, and then landscape plans subject to planning commission approval, we do review. But in terms of just individual residential properties, aside again from the prohibited trees, we're not seeking any permitting process for those at all.
Most of those trees, too, you can't even buy at nurseries anymore. So that shouldn't be too much of a problem. But since I've owned my property, I probably have installed 4 or 5 trees. And I know of 2 trees that need to come down, but it's not in the public right away.
One other thing to point out, Mr. President, I believe in the piece of legislation 50, I believe that there is the fee listed in the actual legislation itself. So if council were intending to amend, I think it's in a section,
Oh, you're right, it is in section 3 there.
so that could be the place to address that.
And through the chair, just so you understand, I'm all for the arborist and helping them out and that type of thing. These are just tweaks, and I appreciate it. And I wish you were here sooner to prevent the Bartlett pears from being planted all over the place. But
Thank you.
yeah, I do appreciate it.
It's part of the monoculture. I mean, there's so many of them, and at a time they weren't considered invasive. They were a highly touted street tree, and now maybe 50% of the street trees are calorie pear.
They even came down my street and replaced the red maples with those things.
Of course they did.
Not mine. Mine stayed.
But also should be a tree that we cannot purchase in a nursery anymore, so hopefully we don't have to worry about more of them going in.
Transplanting is your only problem. If somebody finds one in the woods, transplants it. I have woods next to me.
That's actually with the calorie pear,
Pardon me?
to transplanting of the calorie pear.
I think there are some in the woods next to me.
Well, they spread pretty rapidly.
Very easily. That's why they're invasive species now.
Yes.
Mrs. Swink, you had another question?
Yeah, section 3 says that engineering permits and fees be amended to add a permit fee for planting and removal activities. That's not pruning, but instead of an $80 fee, if they're gonna plant or remove them, could it possibly be something simple like a $3 fee rather than 0, so it stays on radar?
I mean, it could be whatever we want to make it, I suppose, but
80's excessive, I think, but this specifically says to add a permit fee for planting and, it should say and or removal, I would think.
Through the chair? I
Mr.
look at
Havens.
that much like our fire permits for recreational fire permits,
which are free.
Which are free.
which are free. And if you don't get one and the fire department comes out because you've got a recreational fire going, you pay for that service call for the fire department. We could possibly do something similar to that. When somebody's removing a tree and you show up, we charge them for that time.
Thank you, Mr. Havens.
That's your stick.
That could work. Part of the reason for the original idea for the permits was I had intentions of the city doing the planting and removing of these trees,
Rather than the homeowner?
other than the homeowner.
We're not at that point yet. It's something that we're looking at for the future, but yeah, we're not quite there.
Through the chair, just so you know, I remember when the city came down and trimmed the trees within our development. I heard about it for the next 2 weeks. And quite frankly, they did a fine job, and the trees look great after about 2 years. And that's the whole process of pruning a tree.
Mr. Winkle, you had a question?
Yeah, Mr. President, I think it might just be simple that if you just take section 3 and make it, maybe take out the amount altogether and just refer strictly to chapter 10, 1001, and just leave the fee in there, and just take it off this legislation completely. And then just leave the fee be in 1010, and we don't have down here at all.
That's probably not a bad idea anyway, because for future changes to the amount, it only has to be changed in one place then, and not in multiple places.
I guess take it off of here completely and just let 1010 dictate the fee, which we would amend later in our next meeting. And then it does refer to 1030.05A, no matter what it says trimming or planting, you just, everything in 1030.05A is gonna apply. So I think it's might be a simple way to just be done.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Winkle. Mrs. Awig?
Yeah, I'm just curious, do other cities have something like this, and how has that worked? Anybody know?
Our surrounding cities do have forestry programs. That includes North Olmsted, Westlake, Elyria, Bay Village, Rocky River, and I'm not sure about Elyria, but the rest of the above, I know have street tree planting and trimming programs. Ours is, just getting off the ground. In the future, I hope to build a city self-sustained forestry program where we are doing all of the maintenance to these lawn trees. But as Mayor said, we're not quite there yet. But I have been training our willing to learn labor force in the matter of arboriculture, and they're, learning steadily.
And I believe you had also mentioned to me that through the communications director, you were planning on, at least on a monthly basis, kind of putting out some information in regard to tree care.
Yes, last month was proper planting, and this month was to not volcano mulch.
Which we saw some examples of on Tuesday, yes.
Yes.
That also causes your roots to come up to the sidewalks.
Yes, it causes the roots to, the root system to produce what is called adventitious roots. And those roots can end up become circling and then girdling roots, and overall affect the longevity and lifespan of the tree, as well as the stability.
That's happening on our street. I can't get the folks not to do it.
Yeah, it's common landscaper practice, and
Even by some professional landscapers.
it's
They're
what
not
they call-
landscapers, they're grass cutters.
Is there any other questions or comments from the council?
To the chair.
Yes,
I have a
Mr. Schaefer.
question, page 18, D9. No fruit trees shall be planted on city streets. What does that mean?
Right of ways.
So that appears in Exhibit C, which is actually going to be repealed, is that correct?
Oh,
Yeah.
repealed.
But I guess nonetheless, I don't know if you want an answer to that question, would it? It's a fruit tr-
The question from the master tree plan was, it states that no fruit trees shall be planted along. So we're talking about fruiting that drop their debris in streets and on sidewalks and create kind of a mess and sometimes slipping hazards for pedestrians. So we're not trying to say people can't have their backyard apple tree or what have you. This is just, again,
In the
fruiting
public
trees in the
right-of-way.
right of way.
Yeah. Any additional comments or questions from council? I would like to allow a moment for the public if there's anybody in the audience wishing to, no? Okay. Any final comments from council or the administration at this time? So I think I will entertain a motion to, well, I'll make the motion to send 2025-50 back to council for further consideration with the amendment of removing the words "in the amount of $80" from section 3.
Second.
So the motion was made by Jacobs and seconded by Winkle to send 2025-50 back to council with the amendment of removing "in the amount of $80" from section 3. Are there any final comments or questions? Clerk, please call the roll.
Swink,
Yes.
Schaefer,
Yes.
Abens,
Yes.
Winkle,
Yes.
Awig,
Yes,
DeVries,
Yes.
Jacobs.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Thank you, Ryan and Kim, for being here. You're welcome to stay if you'd like. We have another ordinance to discuss at the committee of the whole meeting here, and that is 2025-65. Clerk, if you could please read that.
An ordinance suspending the City of North Ridgeville noise ordinance number 634.01C7 for Hammond Construction and its subcontractors in order to avoid costly delays for the construction of a school transportation and maintenance facility and a new high school for the North Ridgeville School District.
So again, the ordinance was introduced by Mayor Corcoran, so I will ask him to begin by allowing, providing some additional details or information.
Yeah, sure. So, as you know, we live in Northeast Ohio. Construction season is always contingent on the weather. Hammond Construction asked if they could get some relief from the start time on a Saturday morning to 7 o'clock instead of 9. The reason being is that contractors, as you could imagine, most people don't want to work on a Saturday if they don't have to. In these cases, they would be working because of some kind of weather delay, usually during the week, and trying to make up time on a Saturday. So they said that they can't get workers to come if they start at 9, but they can get them to come at 7 because then they'll finish earlier and they can gain back some of their weekend. So they get the advantage of getting the workers to show up, getting the work done, and moving the project forward versus not. And as you're aware, this project has some timelines that they're trying to hold to. Specifically, they're trying to finish it so that way they can open the new high school building in August of 2028. And like most construction projects, and this one is pretty significant, there are certain milestones that you need to hit along the way in order to have your end goal met. So that was the request. It's not something that they would be doing on a weekly basis. It would be on an as-needed basis. So it's something that seemed reasonable, and I believe that we can carve out an exception, creating a situation where nobody else could possibly qualify for something like this unless they met certain standards, which are pretty easy to talk about. Number one, the schools are a public institution. So right there, you create category 1 where other people, say a residential home builder who is looking for that same kind of benefit, would not be able to meet. So this is a public institution for a public purpose. Secondly, the community took a vote. I think that one's another huge hurdle that nobody else will be able to meet. This is a project that was put forward to the community. They voted on it. They want it, and so I think that being another qualifier is pretty simple. We are not only looking out for our own, financial interests, but in this case, we're looking at, with this request, the financial interests of those same taxpayers. Any delays to that project could cause potential financial harm to the school district and therefore to the residents of North Ridgeville. And then third, obviously, I mentioned the timeline that they are trying to meet. Their project is designed to limit or eliminate any harm to the education of the students by asking them to move, say, if the project was delayed, in the middle of the school year. Now, they could try to do it during a break or, but the best time for them to try and prepare would be when they have the most time, which is the summer before the opening. So by granting them this, we give them that ability to keep to those timelines that they're trying to meet. And I think we set it up and structure it so that way nobody else can possibly meet those reasons as to why we granted them this benefit. Mm-hmm. So that's it in a nutshell. I think, again, it's not something that would be used on a weekly basis. As a matter of fact, the schools had a meeting. Hammond Construction ran the meeting along with TDA, the architect, a couple of weeks ago. They invited every single neighbor that their backyard is shared with the school. So that's everybody on Pitts. That backyard faces the school. And then also the homes that are on Bainbridge. So there was, I can't remember the number now, but there were 40 to 50 letters sent out to those homeowners to allow them to come and listen to the construction process and how it might impact them during the course of this overall project. And there were 3 people that showed up. And for the most part, their questions, a couple of them were geared towards the construction process, but for the most part, they were other questions that really had nothing to do with the construction project itself. But the ones that did, the one lady was asking about the demolition of the current high school and how they were going to keep the dust down because she has asthma and she was concerned about the dust flying around. And when they demo buildings, they use water cannons or hoses to cut down on the amount of dust that happens when they're demoing the building. And then also there were a couple of questions about the lighting that was going to be part of the project and how that may or may not shine into their homes or into their yards. But that was, the comment was brought up that they were asking for permission to get started earlier on a Saturday. That didn't seem to faze any of the 3 people that were in the room. So just wanted to pass that along. Okay. That's pretty much it.
All right, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I do agree that since this project was voted and approved by, a majority of the voters, and we are already paying for it in our, we've all seen an increase in our property taxes, so we're already essentially paying for the construction of this school. I'm certainly in favor of keeping it on track and, there not being any delays in the opening. I think it would be a bit chaotic to have to potentially move into the new school during the middle of the school year, as you pointed out. But at the same time, want to be mindful of those residents who do live in direct proximity to the construction zone. So we will ask for public comment here shortly. But first, are there any comments or questions from City Council?
Mr. President, I go ahead, Georgia.
Oh, I was gonna say, I don't know if it's feasible or necessary, but since it's not gonna be every week, is it possible that on the website or something, it could be indicated that, you know, this is, you know, this Saturday they're gonna start at 7 or not? I don't know if it's possible to communicate that in any way.
I'm
residents.
sure that they could put something on there. You know, that would require people to go to their website and check, but
Right,
I'm
but at
sure that
least-
they could put it on there.
Right.
Through the chair.
Yes, Mrs. Swink?
I talked to a construction company owner, and he said that typically they work on weekends if it's, say, a rain day on Tuesday, and they couldn't come and do, you know, work on Tuesday. They'll have their guys come in at 7 on Saturday. But he did make a good point that, you know, they don't get there and start jackhammering at 7 in the morning. They get there, they unload their vehicles, they drink their coffee, you know, chat around for a little bit, and they're typically not even making a whole lot of noise until like 8-ish. My biggest concern was the years that this is gonna go on, but the mayor had said that, they had a meeting with the schools and, you know, 3 people showed up. If people were that concerned about it, I think that a lot more people would have showed up, especially today,
Right.
having this public meeting about it. That's my take on it.
Thank you, Mrs. Swink. Mr. Winkle, you had a...
I guess it concerns me that we have a general contractor listed in the ordinance specifically. For a couple of reasons. We have a general contractor who says they don't have to follow ordinances. That makes me feel, I don't know, I just don't feel it's a good idea. And there has been known to have happened in construction projects that general contractor might not be the only general contractor on a project. Things can go different directions. So that's a concern for me, and I wanted to bring up a suggestion. It says, you know, 63401C7 is what we're giving them special permission to avoid, but they are allowed to work at 7 already. It's just, and they're allowed to use, as it says, they can use domestic power tools. So we're talking about heavy stuff they're asking to do at 7. And just so we all are aware, you know, we're going to be running jackhammers, skid steers, front loaders, you know, someone's gonna, you know, be loud, because they're allowed to work anyways. They're not, it says in the ordinance here that you're not allowed to work before that. You are allowed to work, it's just the noise. And you're allowed to use regular saws, drills, hammers, whatever already. But it also says in 63401C7 that, and this is old language obviously, but a special permit can be issued by the safety service director on special projects to avoid that in that ordinance. I know we don't have a safety service director anymore, but an idea for discussion, at least, it seemed worthwhile, is like, do we change that to allow, instead of safety service director, it says mayor, to write a special permit as is necessary? That you can revoke said permit if something's going wrong, you can adjust it, and we wouldn't have to tie any certain general contractor to legislation. So that was my 2 cents.
Through the chair.
Thank you, Mr. Winkle. Mrs. Swink?
Cliff, I see your point, but it does say the City of North Ridgeville School District is beginning construction. So it doesn't just give them a wide variety of them being
I
handling
understand
construction.
that. I guess the fact that we're listing a general contractor, a private company at all, it just, I'm not a lawyer. I'm not gonna pretend I am one. I just know that I've done enough in my life to say I try to avoid anything if I can see it coming up possible to
A
make
possible
anything
issue, yeah,
muddy.
yeah.
Well, so could it, I mean, potentially just take out Hammond Construction and its subs and just say for contractors? And kind of leave it more generic in order
Tied to
to,
it, the project itself, or the other idea I had, I thought it might have merit, but
as far as the special permit?
yeah, because it says that the language already in there, we'd have to change it to the safety service director who's no longer a recognized position to say mayor. And then he can literally, it's done.
Yeah.
Through the chair?
Mr. Abens?
Let me just jump in there for a second. There's, you know, this is a special project. It is for a long period of time. And so we thought we would bring this forward so that way people would see, you know, what we were doing, instead of, you know, a special permit that, you know, there's an opportunity for discussion here by having an ordinance as opposed to a special permit waiver. You know, and I think it's because of its length of time of construction that it raised the bar a bit outside the realm of special permit waivers. But I totally get your point.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Abens?
Through the chair, a couple of questions. Is Hammond the general contractor or the construction manager?
They're the general contractor.
Okay, because there is a difference. The other thing is, I grew up across the street from Parma Senior High School, even when it was being built. Not when it was torn down, but when it was being built. And the residents in that area basically just got used to the noise that the high school produced, along with the dust and everything else. Just didn't give it two thoughts. And that also included tennis courts that were right across the street from the houses.
Yeah.
And again, people would be there at 6 o'clock in the morning playing tennis. Didn't think anything about it. They might say they're nuts for getting up that early, but I don't see it as a major issue because of my personal experiences and my parents. And the residents there, and I think the only residents that are really going to be affected are the residents on Pitt.
Bainbridge.
And,
It's Bainbridge and potentially the,
Bainbridge will have some
Mobile home
traffic
park.
that'll, you know,
Yeah,
that they'll
and
notice.
I really don't see a problem, and quite frankly, if somebody complains, you explain, this is the way we keep it on schedule, so the high school is finished within time, saving money. It'd be nice to be, the school would be able to, or the school system would be able to give money back if the project goes earlier than anticipated. And so I really don't have a problem with it.
The three ladies that were there acknowledged that they all experience various levels of noise and activity, you know, in and around their house all
frequently,
the
I
time.
would imagine, yeah.
You know, some of them were closer to the bus garage, so they had a different type of noise that they were hearing versus there was somebody down by the tennis courts that are over there. But they all can hear sporting events happening at the stadium or, you know, band practices happening at whatever hour of the day. So I don't know that 2 hours isn't going to make a lot of difference in the noise level or sound level of activity that's over by their house. So that's it.
Are there any additional comments or questions?
To the chair,
Yes, Mr. Schaefer?
I agree with Mr. Winkle. I'm really trepidatious about mentioning a specific contractor in this because what if Hammond Construction goes out of business and you have to find a new contractor?
Valid point. Any additional comments or questions?
Through the chair,
Mr. Abens?
if Hammond goes out of business, the school's in more trouble than just a noise ordinance.
Any additional comments or questions?
Through the chair.
Mrs. Swink?
It does mention subcontractors, and I know what that means. But at some point, will the school have a list of the subcontractors that Hammond's using in case somebody wants to complain, or?
Well, Bill Sherman, who was running the meeting for Hammond, was giving people his cell phone number. So if there's an issue, they are told to call him. So I don't know that it would matter, you know, if it's a subcontractor or not. Bill's going to be the one getting the call.
Are you going to give us his cell phone number?
Uh-huh.
Thank you.
Yep.
So would the administration be opposed to changing the language so that we take the name Hammond Construction out and just leave it as contractors, you know, that are involved with the building of the school?
Yeah, it doesn't matter. Yeah, you could take them out and leave it as just contractors, subcontractors, you know, whatever. Sure.
I'd like to provide an opportunity for the public, if there's anybody in attendance this evening who would like to address council regarding 2025-65 specifically. If you could please go to the podium and start by stating your name and your address for the record, and we will give you up to 3 minutes.
Oh, I don't need that long. My name
Okay.
is Susan Olson. I live on Maddox Road, 7685. My question actually aligns with George's, and it's mostly with the people that live directly there. I don't remember when you said the meeting was that you had with the people.
It's a couple of weeks ago, I don't remember the day.
So they were aware of this noise?
They all received a letter asking them to come to the meeting about the construction.
That's what I was concerned about, because, I mean, if anybody has a say in the matter, it's the people that live directly around there. So maybe, yeah, just, I noticed that on the Facebook that next week they're gonna be starting at 7 o'clock, whatever. So that was my concern. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Olson. Is there anybody else in attendance who would like to address council regarding 2025-65 specifically? No. Okay. Do we have any final comments or questions from the administration or from the council? Is there a motion?
Sure, President, I would move to send this back to council with the amendment to replace the language stating that as it applies, only as it applies to Hammond Construction, to state only as it applies to its general contractor.
I'll second that.
So the motion was made by Winkle and seconded by Awig to send 2025-65 back to council with an amendment where the language regarding, or specifically mentioning Hammond Construction is replaced with the project's general contractor. Are there any comments or questions regarding the motion? Okay, hearing none, clerk, please call the roll.
Swink,
Yes.
Schaefer,
Yes.
Abens,
Yes.
Winkle,
Yes.
Awig,
Yes,
DeVries,
Yes.
Jacobs.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay. So as he said, the motion carries, and the ordinance will be referred back to council for further consideration. With nothing else on our agenda for the committee of the whole meeting this evening, we are adjourned.